Hey friends, this is Steve Sullivan from Miami University's Hefner Museum of Natural History. I'm here today in the Silvoor Biological Sanctuary. I'm here because it's peak native wildflower blooming season. There are some species that have bloomed and they're gone now, and there are some species that are still coming, but there's a good diversity of species here today. Now, I happen to be quarantining with a botanist who's an expert in these things. She's a visiting assistant professor at Miami, Amy Sullivan. Hi! And she's going to take us on a wildflower walk today to see all this amazing diversity. I love scenes like this in early spring. It reminds me of a fairy woodland. What are these guys?
These here are Dutchman's breeches. They're called that because they look like little pantaloons hanging upside down from a clothesline. And they're a staple of early spring wildflowers in Ohio.
Wow, here's a cool flower. Tell us about this one.
Well, this is Virginia bluebells, and it's cool because as it is in bud, the flower buds, you see they're pink. And then when the flowers open up, they open up to those beautiful purple flowers. They're favorites of things like bees and butterflies, and just really beautiful.
Yeah, they're a staple of pop culture wildflowers, and native right here to Ohio, right?
Yep.
Now, right next to these guys, I see one that's maybe a little more obscure, and we had a huge rain and windstorm last night. Looks like these guys haven't quite perked up from that.
Yeah, this is a bellwort species that's native to this Ohio area, and one of the cool things about this is you can walk past it actually pretty easily. It's not all that showy, but when you look more closely, you see some really beautiful yellow petals that are twisted and just visually very interesting.
Cool. Here's a little tree that's beginning to leaf out. What is this guy?
This is Buckeye. It's Ohio's state tree.
Oh, sure enough. And that'll get beautiful flowers later in the spring.
Yep.
And what's this thing?
That's phlox. Notice how it has 5 petals there. Pretty purple color.
Nice. Hey, Amy, have you found something cool there?
I have. I found a jack-in-the-pulpit that's just emerging. This here is the flower structure of the jack-in-the-pulpit, and then this here is the leaf.
Cool. So these guys, they get only a little bit more colorful, and then come fall though, they have a spike of red berries, right?
Yep, they'll have beautiful red berries.
All right, so I see those bluebells that you've taught us about. And here's some of those cute little Dutchman's breeches. And here's a new flower. What's this one?
This is trillium. This is a kind of trillium. All trilliums have 3 leaves like this one does.
Sure, 1, 2, 3 big green leaves.
Yep. And this one of its common names is toadshade.
Toadshade, that's awesome. And look at that shade those 3 leaves give underneath. So you've taught us that trillium have 3 leaves, but my favorite, toadshade, has burgundy flowers, and this one's white. What is it?
Well, this is great white trillium, and it is Ohio's state wildflower.
Here we see some beautiful native bluebells right next to another flower that's almost the same color. Unfortunately, this flower is attached to a big vine that covers this hillside and is strangling out all of the native plants. We have 2 vines here in Ohio that do this. One, the vinca, like this, and another called euonymus that looks almost the same. We also have, on the other side of the hill here, more of this vinca, along with English ivy, a plant that in its native range is beautiful and is certainly a fun horticultural plant, but here in natural spaces is a major pest that eliminates our native wildflowers.
Hey, check this out.
What do you got? Oh, I see toadshade.
Yep, there's some toadshade. And right near the toadshade here, we have these white flowers that are the same shape as bluebells. And in fact, they are bluebells.
But they're not bluebells, they're whitebells.
True, but bluebells can range in color from the bluish purple that we've seen already to this white color.
Cool. And there's some of the usual blue ones right next door. Here's a couple of deer, which are of course a native part of our ecosystem. But when their populations get too high, they end up eating all of our native wildflowers. So I'm seeing tons of these beautiful yellow flowers. I can tell that they've been kind of battered by last night's windstorm, but it's so nice to have carpets of yellow flowers this time of year.
You know, it really is a beautiful plant. This is lesser celandine poppy, and it's not from Ohio. And as you can see, it forms these big mats of plants all over. And what it does is it pushes out our native wildflowers. And for this reason, you know, even though it's beautiful, we don't want to see very much of it.
There's a cute little flower. What's that?
This is cutleaf toothwort, and it has a really distinctive shaped leaf.
Well, thanks, Amy, for leading us on that awesome tour of Silvoor Sanctuary.
You're welcome.
That was so cool to see these, like, Easter eggs scattered out amongst all the forest.
Yeah, spring in Ohio is really quite magical.
It is. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And isn't it great that we have these natural areas that we can escape to while practicing appropriate social distancing? And I really hope that all of you will be able to come back to these natural areas when we can get together as tours. Miami University Natural Areas hosts a whole bunch of wildflower tours in the spring. So hopefully we'll all be together next year and see these things in person. Thanks for sending in your questions. Please tag us with more questions. We'd love to answer everything that you want to know about the nature in your neighborhood.